Will Lucas here, Black Tech Green Money. So good to be with you guys today. And I've got a special guest in the building, DeVon Franklin. Mr. DeVon Franklin is an award-winning film and TV producer, best-selling author, in-demand preacher, and spiritual success coach. And he's got three major projects hitting the screens across the country: A Soul on Fire, Ruth and Boaz, which we'll talk about today, and Divorced Sisters. Welcome, DeVon.
Thanks, man. It's good to see you.
It's a pleasure to be with you today. And I want to start off here. So, you've balanced spirituality with Hollywood pragmatism. And this is some place that most people can't figure out how to do well. And you seem to seemingly have done this well. What daily practices help keep you from pulling apart when you have these two really strong forces that you've been able to navigate?
Yeah, yeah, I don't really feel that kind of tension per se, I mean, just the the demand of the work is probably the greatest tension that I feel, right? Like I
Hmm.
don't really feel like the push between sacred and secular. I don't feel that. But just like all the things that I'm blessed to do, that requires, time management and that
Yeah.
requires, prioritization. And that requires like really like being in the moment to know, okay, here's what I can tackle right now, and then here's what I'll tackle after I get done with this. But like in terms of just the push and pull between sacred and secular, like I don't know, it's because to me it's all one life. So I just it's just incorporated.
Yeah.
But I mean, I definitely pray, I read the word, I watch YouTube videos and motivational talks. I mean, just try to do things that keep my mind right and just keep my spirit aligned.
Yeah. You just touched on how you organize your priorities, and you've often balanced multiple roles: producer,
Yeah.
author, preacher, actor. What's your mental framework for what you say yes to and when?
A lot of it has to do with just like, okay, well, what's the opportunity? What's my, how do I first of all feel about it? And then, does it align with my schedule? What is it going to, what is the opportunity as it relates to, my business or, so it just really depends. I mean, a lot of it is on a case by case basis, but most of it's a feeling. It's like, okay, well, yeah, I feel like that's a good thing to do. I'm gonna do that, or like, nah, I'm not feeling that. If I'm not feeling something, then I'm definitely not gonna do it. It really just comes down to that, like just really feeling it and then assessing if I have the bandwidth to do it.
Yeah. Speaking of that, like when I'm being a man of faith also. It's like when you're ready to
Yeah.
make a move and you feel everything's ready to rock, or at least internally you're ready to go. But for whatever reason, maybe the timing may not be right. Maybe it's a feeling, maybe it's the external things are not aligned. How have you determined whether to push to make the things line up, or have some patience and let things exercise themselves?
Um, like I think, anytime I find myself pushing, I try to catch myself because then I'm like, if I'm trying to push this, maybe I'm trying to exert too much energy and maybe there's not a flow or an alignment to what I'm trying to do. And so, most of the things that have happened for me have been a flow. Like it's happening. Now I still have to spend the energy to manage it and do it well. But in the things that have been the most successful in my life, there isn't necessarily me pushing
Yeah.
to make it happen. It's almost like the current is flowing, and I just have to, jump in the flow, jump in the current, to let it take me where I'm supposed to be. But if I ever find myself pushing, then I say, maybe I'm doing this in my strength, and I need to step back and say, okay, God, like, where are you in all this, and how
Yeah.
do you want me to move?
That's good. That's good. Talking, and I would love if you answered a little bit of Ruth and Boaz on this one. It's like
Yeah,
I was
yeah.
talking to Roland Martin a couple of days ago, and he was mentioning a story and somebody talking to him about how his production or black production might be inferior to, other sorts of studios and news outlets and etc. And I remember a day, which I'm sure you do also, where faith-based programming didn't have the big budgets of Hollywood and etc. And so I'm interested in your take on what the future of faith-based entertainment looks like and why it's important.
Yeah, well, I think that the future of faith-based entertainment is as a genre. It's like when you look at horror or comedy or superhero movies or dramas, those genres Hollywood is accustomed to. So you'll see movies and TV series that will be horror, or they'll be comedy, or they'll be drama. But right now with faith, you get a movie or two every year. And so I think that there's going to be much more faith content as the audience shows up, like they've showed up for Ruth and Boaz, as they show up for other movies that I've been associated with, and even movies that, I didn't produce, but I was in, like a Jesus Revolution. Like as the audience continues to show up, you're going to see more faith-based content as, just baked into the business of Hollywood. And, there's a friend of mine does the House of David show on Prime Video, which is great. And so I think you're going to see more. You're going to see a proliferation of content, because I think the audience continues to demand more. Hollywood is paying attention to, what the audience wants. And, in Hollywood, there are very few growth sectors left. And I believe that the faith sector is still a growth sector, because we haven't even really scratched the surface of what's possible from a mainstream standpoint. And so my thought is that it will continue to grow, and it will continue to find legitimacy as a viable genre that is, capable of handling all different types of programming options, whether it's an unscripted show, whether it's a live event, whether it's a movie, whether it's a TV series. The faith space, I think, is just beginning to scratch the surface of what's possible.
You just said, like, the audience has been going to the movies, just not necessarily having the opportunity to go to see these sorts of movies, but that's an increasing category for us to be able to consume. And I wonder your thoughts on how the industry looks at or has historically looked at, what, we're not paying attention to that right now, or we'll give it a little bit of a, budget to be able to produce these things. And what happens now that a Ruth and Boaz says this story, okay, we're behind this. Like, what is happening that that this particular story and the story, other stories that you're telling are getting those, opportunities to really make something happen.
Yeah, I think it's, one, I think it had just a lot to do with, I mean, I have specialized in this area for a very long time. I mean, I've been in Hollywood for about 30 years, and I have specialized in this area in terms of, uplifting inspirational content for about, almost 20. And so, that has given me, a point of view that, is trusted. And, my instinct on kind of the things that I think will work, and I think the things that I think will, be uplifting to an audience, because of the time that I put in to being in Hollywood, and staying the course and learning and just growing in the business. I now have credibility, and so the success of Ruth and Boaz continues to expand that credibility, which continues to, I believe, provide more opportunities, for me to make, more content like this, and bring, stories like this to the world. And I think it also will open doors for other filmmakers who are like-minded.
What's a recent moment where your lens on faith and your business lens might have given you two different answers, and how did you navigate that?
Hmm. That's a good question. I Man, I really haven't had that experience.
If you did,
I
that's
just
fine. That's fine.
Yeah, I just haven't had that experience. I don't know. I mean, yeah, I have not had that experience.
It's fair.
It just Yeah, it's not something, in terms of like, well, the business is this, the faith is saying that. I don't know. Maybe because I just have organically always incorporated faith into who I am and what I do in business. Um, I don't know. It's like those two seem to be very intertwined for me in ways that are, I guess, unusual,
Yeah.
like, yeah, yeah. I mean, I don't know. I mean, you look at, in the Bible, you know, Daniel, Shadrach, Meshach, Abednego, they were interns and they got jobs in Babylon, and it's interesting because in that story, it's like outside of the moments when they were asked to, worship another god, which really weren't, it really wasn't like a business thing. It was more about, hey, personally, this is what you're going to do. And they were like, no, we're not going to do that. You don't really see any scripture talk about them wrestling with the sacred and secular, as it relates to being in power in Babylon. So I don't know. I look at that and say that's interesting. Like in my experience in Hollywood, in my experience in business, I don't know. Those two have really been symbiotic in a way that I could understand is kind of unconditional. I mean, excuse me, untraditional
Yeah, yeah, yeah. No,
or
that's
non-traditional.
yeah, that's a fair response. Number one, if it has happened to you, that's fair. It's fair. Then, yeah, but so it makes me think like you
Uh,
are part of a group of people. I think about who are like celebrity faith leaders, and not just like that they're
mm,
you're not the celebrity because of the faith or faithful because of your celebrity, but like you are both things, and we're in a day where that's it's increasing, I'm seeing an increasing amount of celebrity faith leaders. How do you manage that, and how have you seen others manage that, responsibility well also?
sure. Yeah. Yeah. I think I'd manage it just by being myself. I don't try to think of like myself as a leader, like, because then I think sometimes what happens is instead of living authentically, you live by how you anticipate others are going to perceive you or how others are going to expect you to live. And I think that kind of can put us on a very inauthentic path versus like, hey, this is who I am. This is who God called me to be. And as I take those steps, I am aware of the impact and the influence that God has allowed me to have. And my job as a leader is to first lead myself and to do the things that I think God is calling me to do. And then I certainly share, okay, hey, here's how I'm doing it, here's how I've done it. And if people find, something powerful or instructive about that, great. But I think it's yeah, I don't really live life thinking like when I go out like, oh, I'm this leader and I need to do X, Y, or Z.
Mhm,
Like
mhm.
I think my lifestyle and my level of success and just who I am as an individual is probably leadership in and of itself. You know, and I feel like when you take on like the idea like, well, I'm this leader. Well, okay, then what do you feel like you have to live up to or down to, or what level of, well, then I can't be my true self because people really expect me to do this, but I'm really that. So I'm going to present an image to do this, and I don't know. For me, I just don't do that. It's like what you see in the public for the most part is really, who I am. And I really try to, if I were to, have a leadership thought, it's just by example, like I am about what I say I'm about, and try to always do, good business, try to always be mindful of my Christianity and just live authentically, be live truthfully. I mean, that's really how it is, you know what I mean, and how I like to do it. So I really, but I don't try to like say, oh, I'm this leader and this is how I'm gonna do this. It's like,
Yeah,
wait a minute, like, hold on a second. Like
yeah.
it's cool that people look to me and and I don't mind that. Like that doesn't bother me at all. I do have advice, I do have a lot of success, I do have a lot of insight. And I think that what I could say to somebody will be helpful to them, and I do it from a place of, well, that's authentic for me,
Mhm.
not because I feel like I gotta do it because this is what's expected, if that makes sense.
Makes sense, makes sense. When you're somebody like you, when you are leading, and you are leading in this way, it's like when you are blessed to have an opportunity to do what you do at a high level, and again, we talked about like the budgets 15 years ago for these sorts of works were not the budgets like they are now. The quality
Right.
are on par with every other movie that comes out now. And so a lot rides on people like you to be successful so that the next person can get the shot. Um, I don't know if you feel that. At least when I look at you, I'm like, okay, if Devin is winning, they will look for more Devins and
Hmm.
Devonas. So I wonder, do you feel that at all? Do you feel a responsibility to, I got to make this thing as big as it can be because a whole bunch of other people's shot is riding on my successes also?
No, I don't think that way, and I'll tell you why. Because then what happens is, like, that's not actually the goal. Meaning, Netflix gives me, millions of dollars to make Ruth and Boaz. They're giving me this money to make this movie because they believe in my ability to make a quality film. If I'm thinking about, oh my goodness, I can't mess this up because I got other producers coming behind me, then what happens is I take my eye off of what it should be on. My eye needs to be on making a great film, doing the best I can to tell a great story, doing the best I can to get Netflix a return on their investment. Because that's all that matters. Because if I'm like trying to think like, oh my goodness, I'm putting the pressure of like people that I don't even know on my shoulders, then I'm starting to make decisions that might not even be good for the movie. But it's good, but I think it might be good for like, oh, how I want to look or what I think will happen. No, no. Do what's best for what you've been given. My job is to make a great film, to go out there and publicize this movie and let people know this movie is going to be uplifting. It's going to be a great, entertaining experience. And then the success of that, the byproduct will be opportunity for others. But if I try to take the stress and the pressure of like, oh my goodness, if this fails, then people behind me won't get a shot. That's not really what the job is. My job is to make a great film, and I guarantee that if I do that, there will be plenty of opportunities that will get created. So not that it's not important to me, because it certainly is, but it's not part of my thought process. I don't even factor it in. I'm like, nah, I gotta make a great movie. This is where the money is. This is what
Yeah.
I'm being asked to do, and if I do it well, then that's going to speak for itself. But I think sometimes in a even in a noble way, we can take our eye off of the ball, and when we take our eye off the ball, we can miss what it is we're supposed to do. I don't think that Steph Curry, when he goes out to play, he's thinking like, yo, I'm playing because I want other players coming after me. It's like, well, no, that'll be a byproduct of his success. But his number one priority has to be what he does on that court and the energy, effort, and focus that he puts into being the best basketball player that he can be at any given moment. And then when he does that, others will say, well, wait a minute. Here's a guy, Steph Curry's height, who was able to do this. Well, we're going to give other people his height opportunities because of
Mhm.
what he did with his. So
Mhm.
that to me is how I look at it. It's like, yo, I got to do my best with the opportunity I've been given. And if I do that, that in and of itself will create other opportunities.
'Cause I was reading a story about how you reconnected with Babyface after 20 years or so,
Yeah,
and he remembered you being a young executive and you were doing good work and et cetera. And you said this quote that I want to reposition here. You said, "Always plant seeds of excellence. They never grow out of style." And so
that's right.
I want you to talk about that and how your performance that 20 years ago provided an opportunity today.
Yeah. 20 years ago, Babyface and his then wife, Tracy Edmonds, had hired me as a junior executive in the film department. And I was a huge fan of his and hers. I mean, they had just produced a soul food movie, and that was pretty big at that time. And I was excited by the opportunity to work at Edmonds Entertainment. It was, at the time, one of the premier entertainment companies in Hollywood, black or otherwise. They had film, they had television, they had music, they had music management, they had record labels. I mean, they had casting. I mean, it was like nothing I've ever seen to date. I mean, it was pretty impressive. And so, as a young executive with something to prove, being given a chance to be a junior exec was something that I didn't take lightly. So, I would get in early, I would stay late, I would, anything that Tracy needed me to do, I would do it. I would try to do it with excellence. I was always looking to be of service, and I did not realize it at the time that having that point of view and having that disposition was making an impression on someone like Babyface. I didn't know that. I was just showing up doing my job. I mean, I was raised in the church, and I was taught, being of service and excellence is important. And so I just kind of applied what I learned in the church to how I approached this job. And I did it because, for one, it was my job, and then two, I was hungry for opportunity. Especially at that time, I was hungry to make my mark in the business. I was hungry to learn. I was hungry to, move forward in my career. And so that hunger showed up in my commitment to excellence, my commitment to serve, my commitment to, being integral, being of good character, commitment to work hard. And so, I did that for about a year and a half, and then I got a job as an executive for MGM. And then while I was at MGM, I worked on a few films before MGM got sold to Sony, and then I became an executive there. What I did not know, and I don't think anyone knows this, it's like, you don't realize who's watching. You don't realize the impact of your service, and what you can do in terms of showing up, being responsible, being fun and great to work with. You don't realize, like, that's planting seeds. So I feel like, on your job, either you're planting seeds or you're uprooting seeds. And every day is an opportunity to plant seeds. Even when situations aren't the way you want them to be, don't use that as an excuse to give less service than you're capable of, because at the end of the day, that level of service and who you are, it only accrues back to you. So even if you're at a job, they don't get you, they don't respect you, they don't value you, that's okay, but you value you. So you work the way that you need to work in order to retain the value that you see in yourself. And those seeds that you plant, whether or not they grow from the place you planted, it doesn't matter. Those seeds are planted, and what you sow you will reap. So if you sow excellence, you're going to reap it. I didn't realize that the way I would reap the seeds of excellence that I planted when I worked for Babyface 20 years ago, that I would reap those seeds in my own movie that I produced. That's a miracle. That's amazing that here I am starting to produce a film, and I'm like, oh wait, this part would be perfect for Babyface. Oh, hey man, you want to do it? Yeah. Hey, of course I want to do it. I'm proud of you. Like, this is
So,
great. Look at
yeah.
the man you've become. So, I just would encourage anyone to plant those seeds every day. Plant those seeds. Just keep showing up. And again, you might even change jobs. I've changed job multiple times before I started running my company. It's not so much about that. It's about the mindset, and it's about how it's about the work ethic.
If you were teaching Wealth Building 101 for Black producers and Black faith producers, because there's nuance there in both those that matter, what would lesson one be?
What would lesson one be if I was teaching, Black faith producers?
Wealth Building 101 to Black producers
Oh.
or Black faith producers.
Hmm. I would say, you have to study to show yourself approved. And I think that when you're talking about wealth, um, the financial wealth that you might ultimately want will start because you have a practice of wealth in every area of your life.
That's good. That's good.
You really, have a passion for a wealth of knowledge. Like, okay, no matter what I'm doing, like, I'm not just gonna do it, I'm gonna learn. I mean, even now, I'm learning how to make better movies. I'm learning how to make better movies more efficiently. I'm learning, so I continue to build my wealth of knowledge. So I would say, if anyone's looking to build wealth financially, make sure you're building wealth in every area of your life. Wealth of love, wealth of, health, wealth of emotional stability, wealth of information, wealth of spirituality. Like, all of those things matter. And so often we only think of wealth financially. But to me, when you're actually wealthy financially, it is because you practice wealth as a practice, period. You're wealthy, period. And a lot of times you're when you practice being wealthy emotionally and physically and spiritually, and informationally, then when you become wealthy financially, it's just an extension of what you've already been practicing. So I would encourage, or I would say to anyone trying to build wealth, that's where it starts. The wealth that I have and the wealth that is growing, financially in my life is directly related to the practice of wealth that I have in every other area of my life.
Yeah. I got a couple phones for you. I like to ask people, what is so everybody carries, the obvious, the phone, the wallet, the keys. What are some non-obvious things that are in your everyday carry that you always keep on you?
My my chapstick, whatever you want to call it, my lip therapy. I can't do nothing without this. Got that, gotta have it. And my AirPods. Those are the two things. And my wedding ring now. Those are the three things.
Congrats,
I gotta
congrats.
have it. Period. Everywhere I go. I need my AirPods, I need my lip therapy, and I gotta have my wedding ring.
I love it. I love it.
Yeah.
What's something you bought that cost little but had a big impact?
Oh man. Wow, that costs little, but had a big impact. Ooh. What would
Or you can do this one. Here's a beat to that. Is what's the best $500 you've ever spent on your career? So either one.
shoot on $500 on life coaching? That's the best. I mean, that's
Say
man.
more there. Say more on that.
Yeah, just again, like the greatest asset that we have is our mind. And the thing about our mind is we take it for granted. We just, meaning like working on ourself, working on our mindset, working on, unblocking ourselves in certain areas, doing that internal work. That's the work. And sometimes we overlook the work because we think that the work is just what we do professionally. And don't get me wrong, that work's important because that work, certainly pays the bills. However, I've gotten so much value out of working on myself. And so spending that $500, on life coaching and doing sessions with my life coach really, really pays off because the more that I train my mind, then I'm able to excel. I'm able to succeed. I'm able to work at levels that I otherwise couldn't work. I mean, even in a moment like this, being just released a film, the Ruth and Boaz movie on Netflix. I'm in post production on a film that I just did for Amazon Prime called Relationship Goals with Kelly Rowland and Method Man. I'm in pre production on a film that I'm getting ready to do for Netflix. I have an audio book that's getting ready to come out that I'm promoting. I'm in a film called Soul on Fire, which is in theaters nationwide starting October 10th that Sony Pictures is releasing. Um, and I'm also in Divorced Sisters, which is on BET Plus. So, and all those things are happening all at one time. Now, if I had not spent years working on my mind, coaching, doing the work on the inside, I would never be able to handle all these things. These things would be beyond my capacity. But because I started increasing my mental capacity years ago, I can be in this moment and I can manage these things successfully and they don't crush me. So that's where the $500, which may seem like a lot, it's like, no, I'm gonna put that money. I'm not gonna put it on a suit. I'm not gonna put it on no shoes. I'm not gonna put it, on an accessory for the car. I'm gonna put it into my mind. I'm gonna put it into my own personal development, and that is money that is well spent. And I would encourage anyone to do it because it really makes a big difference.
There's another quote I found from you where you said, "Who we think we are can actually work against us." And, I think about identity, that we put on ourselves and what other people think about us can also work against us. Can you say more about what you mean when you say that and how we can break free from, the limitations or the expectations that we put on ourselves by what we think about ourselves?
Yeah, and what we think about ourselves is important. Yet, I would also just encourage anyone to remain curious about who you are and what's possible for you. Because sometimes, don't get me wrong, finding an identity that works in the world is hard. Finding our purpose. And what I mean by finding an identity, it's like, if somebody says, hey, I'm going to pursue being a teacher, and they are able to pursue that, and that's a passion of theirs, and they get compensated, getting into that place where it's like, oh wow, I found something that I love. That's great. There's nothing wrong with that. However, what if you're also an actor? What if you're also an author? What if you're also a
Yeah.
dancer? So sometimes we get so locked into that one identity that helps basically fund our survival, that we latch onto it so hard that we never stay curious enough about who we are to then explore what else may be possible. So years ago, you know, I was a studio executive. After I left MGM, I went to Sony Pictures Entertainment and worked on Pursuit of Happiness and 7 Pounds and Hancock and the Karate Kid remake and Jumping the Broom and Heaven is for Real and so many movies in between. Now, if I had locked my identity into being an executive, then when it was time for me to write my first book, I would have never been able to write it. Why? Because I said, well, I would have said, well, I'm not an author. But when the opportunity came to write the first book, instead of saying I'm not, I said, well, maybe I am.
Mhm.
Let me see. Let me try. Oh, I tried that. That actually works. So I'm not just an executive, I'm also an author. And then the opportunity came for me to, start my production company. If I only thought of myself as an executive or just an author, I would have never then stepped into running my own company and became a producer. But then I had to say, well, maybe I am. Let me go see. So then I open myself up to that. And then, producing starts to work. And then it's like, okay, well, maybe, an opportunity came for me to be a TV personality and be on TV and be a regular on Dr. Oz at that time. I'm like, well, maybe I am. And then the opportunity comes for me to act. Tyler offers me a show, like, hey, come do Divorce Sisters and be, one of the stars of the show. I've never done a TV series like that, but maybe I have the ability. So, what I say is sometimes the knowledge of self is the greatest barrier to the understanding of self,
Mm. Mhm.
because we think we know who we are. Well, I know who I am today, but let me be open, because maybe there's more that wants to get revealed to me. Maybe God wants to show me, hey, you're even more than you think you are. But if I lock in and say no, I'm just Devon the producer, then who I really am may never see the light of day. So that's why I would encourage anyone to just be curious about yourself. Oh, well, can I do this? Do I have this ability? I don't know. And guess what? Don't be afraid to try. Hey, the worst thing that happens is it doesn't work out the way you may have wanted, but then you have the experience and you can say, wow, that was crazy. I can't believe I tried that. Man, versus like living in the what if. Oh man, well, what if I had done this? Well, no, I want to live in the I did it. And sometimes you get to that place and you do it well, and sometimes you don't. But you grow from it. And so that's what I mean by that quote. That's what I mean.
That's really good. I think about all the positions you hold, things that you've done, and I talk to so many people, and I'm also a person who has like a lot of ideas. I can do a lot of things, and I talk to entrepreneurs who have a ton of ideas and want to do a ton of things. And how do you first prioritize what you work on when? Like, how did you know, for instance, how did you know right now was the time to do Ruth and Boaz? Because I'm sure you've got a ton of ideas for movies, you've got a ton of scripts that you could be producing. How did you know right now was the time? And how do you prioritize what you should be working on?
Yeah, with Ruth and Boaz, I just had a feeling. I felt it. I was like, oh, I think this is what it is. And then I pitched it to a writer friend of mine, and he was like, "Oh yeah, I like that." And then he and his writing partner came up with the concept in about 48 hours. And then when they sent it back to me, I said, "Oh, okay, yeah, I think there's something here." And we started working on it. And then when I told Tyler Perry about it, he was like, "Oh yeah, that sounds really good." And then when I told Netflix about it, they're like, "Yeah, that sounds cool." Then we got the script, and the script was good. I was like, "Oh snap, the script is good." Like it was a feeling, and then I just followed the feeling, and either you get confirmation or you don't. And so at every step with the development and the production and the release of Ruth and Boaz, it's just been a rolling set of confirmations. And it just started with the feeling. I just said, oh, I think this is what I'm supposed to do. I think, yeah, I really, because I was connected to the story. I felt like, oh yeah, there hasn't been a love story in a long time, and this movie really is good. And oh yeah, let's just do it. Let's try it. And it just snowballed. I mean, so that part was pretty cool. Like, so usually it always starts with the feeling. Like, what am I feeling? And then I follow it. And sometimes I'm feeling something, and then it's like, oop, nope, that's not it. Because I
Mm-hmm.
either I hit a roadblock or I hit a certain level of resistance that I'm like, again, going back to that whole pushing idea. No, no, I don't need to push a door open that God has for me. I don't see, no, no. If God has it for me, then that door is going to open. I just got to be in position for when it does. And if I'm really trying to open a door or change a situation to my will, and it's not already that, I got to step away from it. So, it's a process. It's a fluid process of feeling, praying, stopping, looking, getting confirmation. Years ago, I went on a whitewater rafting trip, and the guide said, when I say paddle, paddle. When I say stop, stop, because and that's how we get through the rapids successfully and not get turned over. And so there would be times when he would tell us to paddle, where when we look at the rapids, we think we should be stopping. And then there were times he would tell us to stop, and then we look at the rapids and we would think that we would be rowing. But he knows the water better than we did. So that's kind of like how it is with God. God knows the water better than we do. So I got a feeling, I row.
Yeah.
Okay, God says stop. I got a feeling, I row. God says stop. And then you see the momentum. Can you imagine if I'm trying to be in the raft and trying to go upstream? It's
Yeah. Yeah.
impossible.
Yeah.
There's a
Yeah.
flow. So that feeling is okay, God, show me where you're flowing. And then I do my part and get confirmation. Oh, confirmation means I can row again. Okay, great. I keep rowing, rowing, rowing. I stop to get confirmation. Okay, let me keep rowing.
Yeah.
Okay,
Yeah.
cool.
Yeah.
So that's the process.
I love it. Lastly, I want you to talk about the movie, and the story. What can you give us a synopsis of? Actually, I really want to do two here, so forgive me. I want you to talk about why people should watch this movie, like the premise of Ruth and Boaz. I know the story. I grew up in the church, so I know the story. And then if you can leave our entrepreneurs with a principle, you've given us so much and so many keys. I'm going to take notes from this interview because there was so much here. Can you leave us with some principles that we should be thinking about as we're on our journey? Maybe even from the story.
Yeah, I mean, the story of Ruth and Boaz is the movie Ruth and Boaz, which is on Netflix now, and it's doing very well. We were like in the top 10 in like over 60 countries, and we're
Congratulations.
the number one movie in almost 10 countries, which is amazing. And that the story is about a young woman who is on a journey trying to figure out where God wants her to go, and that leads her to move from Atlanta to Pegram, Tennessee, with the woman that was the mother of the guy she was dating. And they both went through a tragedy. The woman ends up going back to her hometown of Pegram, Tennessee. Our lead Ruth follows her, and when she goes out to find work, she doesn't realize she's also going out to find love.
Yeah.
And she finds love in the form of Boaz, who owns the vineyard where she finds a job. And then you get a chance to see them come together, but she has to still reckon with her past if she wants to have a future with Boaz. And so that's the story, and it's inspired by the biblical story of the same name of from the book of Ruth. And for entrepreneurs, I when I went to the University of Southern California, I had a major in business and an emphasis in entrepreneurship. And as part of my senior thesis, as not even part of, as my senior thesis, I did a business plan for the production company that one day that I would start. And I had that business plan. It was almost a 50-page business plan. I had that business plan when I was 22. I did not get the opportunity to start the company until I was 36. So I would, encourage any entrepreneur to have vision and really understand the industry that you're called to and the business you want to start, and resist the temptation to put a demand on the timing of that vision. Have the vision, pursue it. If you get the funding, great. If you don't give up on the vision, but find what you need to do until it's time for the vision
Mm,
to
yeah,
manifest.
got it.
And so for me as an entrepreneur, if I had demanded that at 22, that's when I have a business plan and I need to get it funded, then I would have missed it. We wouldn't even be having this conversation. So I had to hold on to the vision, but then I had to get a job. I had to work. I had to commit to learning Hollywood. I had to serve somebody else's vision before I could be in a place to execute my own. So I would encourage, anyone, listening, any entrepreneur listening, don't be weary and well doing. Don't give up on your vision. Yet don't also stress yourself out because you're trying to get the timing of the vision to manifest before it's time. If you plant a seed in the ground, it don't matter what you do to that seed. Some seeds just there's a certain amount of time. And the more you go over and keep watering it and uprooting the soil, the only thing that happens, you delay it versus saying, hey, I planted this seed. I believe this is what I'm supposed to do. I'm going to keep working at it. And guess what? I'm going to work at it with joy.
Yeah, yeah,
The vision is not meant to depress us. We sometimes have self inflicted depression because we put a timeline on it. Well, it needs to happen by this. Well, no, it doesn't. No, it doesn't. Let it happen when it's going to happen. And until it happens, keep learning, keep growing, keep researching. So when it does happen, you're even in a better position to handle the success of whatever vision God has given you.